I see a room full of people that have been in my story, so thank you for keeping my job going. Last week I went to the Sacramento Urban League to speak to about 50 young black professionals. You know what they said? They said, they came from Chicago, Texas, New York, and they said they came to Sacramento because it was a welcoming place. And we know also that Iraqis, Pakistanis, Burmese, Afghanis, Mexicans, Salvadorans, Russians, Ukrainians from around the world have come here and found this to be a welcoming place. Now, my own journey here began in 2001 at the iftar when Wali Amr invited me to come by, and I really knew nothing about Islam or Muslims. I'm from Brooklyn, New York, the same neighborhood as Ben Wagner. And there is a street in our neighborhood called Atlantic Avenue, where there are many Arabs and Muslims. I would stop by there on the way home from school and buy some Syrian bread. And that was my entire interaction with Muslims and Arabs. So I really knew nothing until Wali brought me in. And there are other bridge builders in this room that have played a significant role as well. So I came and I learned about the breaking of the fast, and I talked to a lot of dedicated Muslim American kids that had been fasting, and one whispered in my ear, if you're going to do this, you should suck on the dental floss. I guess that was one way to slake their appetite. Now, the other thing that I saw that day was I saw the amazing diversity among the Muslim Americans in Sacramento. And we had diversity in the newsroom. The editor at the time, he's here tonight, was Rick Rodriguez, who is Russian and Mexican. And he just basically said, go out and find the stories. And so I wrote a very long story, as I tend to do, about Muslims from all over the world that live here in Sacramento. And they came from various African countries, they came from Vietnam, they came from the Middle East, some were Latino Muslims, you met one tonight. And I wrote a pretty in-depth story about this. And several weeks later, we were hit by 9/11. And I've said this before, and I'm proud of this in Sacramento. We had virtually no backlash to 9/11 in Sacramento because of people like you in this room that have built such strong bridges across faith and race and ethnicity. And so that is where that journey began. And I know a little bit something about Islam now, thanks to the people in this room. And again, I'm so grateful to all of you and what you have done. And I'm wearing a tie, I don't know if you see it. Nelson Mandela is on this tie. And one of the great things Mr. Rodriguez did was he sent me to cover the election in South Africa. Before I talk a little bit about that, I've learned that there are many paths to the kingdom of heaven. Islam is one of them. The managing editor of the Bee is here. He's a nice Jewish boy from Baltimore, Scott LeVar. My day editor is also a nice Jewish guy from Baltimore, Maury Mock. And they believe in difference, and they believe in diversity, and they believe in good stories, and they believe in the entire community. And so they say, go out and find the stories. We don't care what color anybody is. We don't care what they believe. Just find their truth. And it is such a gift to be able to do that. And in the last week, I'll tell you about two people that I met. One is from Africa. Her name is Matilde Makanlapana. She was a refugee from Rwanda. She came here. She became a professor at Kasumdas River College, and the week she started, her whole family was slaughtered in Rwanda. And here's what she said. She said that once you lose your family, you find your own family, a new family. And she found a new family in Sacramento. And The environment here, she said, was something that let me get beyond my own narcissistic suffering, and she became the leading voice, perhaps in the world, on the genocide of Rwanda, and helped Rwandan refugees settle here, and has gone back numerous times, trained hundreds of social workers, and saved hundreds of orphans. And she is part of our community here. The other guy I hung out with is a Vietnamese refugee named Tim Do. Tim Do tried to escape from Vietnam numerous times. He couldn't get a boat, he couldn't get gas. He finally got a fishing boat with 70 people. He had to pilot the boat. He didn't know how to pilot a boat. The boat capsized off the coast of Malaysia. And all 70 people went overboard, and he and his crew swam between the shore of the boat to save everybody on that boat. They made it to Thailand, to the refugee camp, where he had no place to lie down because it was so packed. He couldn't barely stand up. They had to sleep on latrines for weeks. And he saw people die of disease. And he made it to the Philippines, where he learned English, and he came to the United States, and he learned English, and he delivered newspapers. And then he went to mechanic school, and he fixed boats in Monterey. And then he came to Sacramento, and he took over a food truck. And now he owns a depot for all the food trucks in Sacramento. And he's a multi-millionaire, and he just built the Vietnamese Community Center for Sacramento with his own money, and he got out there with the forklifts, and he poured the concrete and put on the windows and doors. But he believes in all faiths. He's building a Vietnamese Baptist church across the street. He's building a new Vietnamese temple. And he sent his kids to Catholic school. And when the air conditioning broke down, he climbed up on the roof and he fixed it. And those are the kinds of people that we have encouraged and invited to Sacramento. And it makes me proud to be here, to be a part of that. Now, in South Africa, I saw something amazing when I covered that election. I didn't see anger. I didn't see retribution. I saw joy. And this, I think, emanated from the great Nelson Mandela, who is still with us. And I have a few words that he said. He said, education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world. And Salam has done it by bringing in Jews and Christians and Protestants and breaking down those barriers and demystifying this community. And a couple of other things that Mr. Mandela said. He said, I am not a saint unless you think of a saint as a sinner who keeps trying. And here is what he said about race. He said, no one is born hating another person because of the color of his skin or his background or his religion. People must learn to hate. And if they can learn to hate, they can be taught to love. For love comes more naturally to the human heart than its opposite. So thank you all for loving your neighbors in Sacramento and making this such a welcoming place.
Now we have 3 minutes.